Hi there, I'm here with Isy from Incube8r. Isy, welcome. Thanks for having us in the store.
Thank you.
Isy is also an artist herself and she owns this Incube8r store in Fitzroy. Can you just tell us a little bit about what's the concept here?
I wanted to create a space where anyone could take part. So it's like an indoor market. So people can rent a glass cubicle or a clothes rack or a shelf space. Or then there's also two-dimensional spaces in terms of the partitions, the wall, there's more shelf spaces. So essentially the gallery is divided up into 100 different spaces that artists can rent out.
Wow.
Starting at $21 a week. So we've had as young as 15 and as old as 87.
Yeah, right. Okay. And how would someone who is just getting into the industry, like such a 15-year-old, pitch to you and start selling their work?
People are welcome to come in and bring us what they've made and show us. There's also an applications page online, and essentially what we are is a place to trial an idea from. So we offer a platform where there's a brand new idea where people can just come in, put it out against the public, and then we tell them the feedback that we've got from people viewing their product.
And how many pieces of artwork do you think you need to get started selling your work?
A good range is a really good place to start. But some people just start off with one or two just to try and see if their items are well received. It totally depends on the size.
Yeah, sure. And so what sort of things make an artwork stand out? So sort of grab a customer's eye. Is there something?
It depends on people's taste. The louder something is we find on Smith Street, the easier it is to sell. Red sells very easily. It also depends on the person's display. So they come in, they rent the space, they bring in their own items. So
This is actually like a piece of artwork in itself, isn't it?
Because they come, it's like a little flat they've rented and they're going to decorate it and show people around the flat. So they bring in their own props and their own display. So the more attention you can draw to your space, the more likely it is that you'll generate interest and you'll sell an item. And you can also see that with the different rack spaces. The more that you lay something out, the more visual you make it, the more interesting you make it, the more you're likely to sell.
Right, and so this is kind of like a marketplace, and I guess that's another place that artists and visual artists can sell, designers can sell their work. Do you know much about the online marketplace and how does that differ from actually selling in person?
I'm more old school in that I like to touch something, feel something, try it on and see what it looks like, but a lot of people are buying online these days, so we also offer all of our artists to have a profile with their artwork on our website, and a lot of people get links directly back to their website and get private orders and commissions. There are many avenues these days for selling online, but we often get described as a walk-in Etsy because every cube is like a little miniature shop.
Is Etsy the only online store like that, or is it
No,
other?
there's heaps.
Oh, okay. What are some of the other?
At least 15 Australian ones.
Okay.
There's a lot. Just Google handmade Australian websites.
Yeah, right.
Some really big ones, some smaller ones, but yeah.
And how does commissioning usually work for an artist? Like, does somebody give you a picture or their own design and then you make it if they like your style?
Yeah. We have a jeweler out the back who he says this is his cube here. He'll say that if you have a ring that doesn't suit you anymore or you don't like the style or the shape, he can model one and start from scratch with a wax master, or if you've got a stone that you've inherited from your grandmother and build something with you. So there's that type of commission. Or some people sometimes order in bulk, so they see one thing that they really like and they want to give it to their whole corporate group, so they'll order 20 of that one thing for their business Christmas
And that'll
function.
keep you busy?
Yeah.
Reproducing. So do you have any tips for promoting yourself and marketing your work once you've got it into a store or put it on a website online?
Social networking is huge, so have a Facebook page. But the very first thing you need to do is check if somebody else is already using that business name. I've seen a lot of people get into trouble and start something huge, get 5,000 followers, and then get the legal letter saying, I've trademarked that name, can you please stop using it? So go to IP Australia, make sure that it hasn't been used, that name that you want to register or start your Facebook page.
That's great advice.
And then start just cross-pollination, chat to other people, other business owners, other people that make stuff, swap links, reciprocal links, and the more you can mix it up and share information, social networking for us is the key. We've got 5,000 followers on Facebook, and we share information and sell a lot through our Facebook page as well.
Right. So earlier, Izzy was telling me about you've got to have some really cool hashtags and things going on. Can you give us any tips of what we should be putting in our work so people can find it and look at it?
If you use Instagram, use the word, if you're a jeweler, use jewellery. Make sure you use our spelling as well as the American spelling. Just whatever are the top keyword searches. The words love, me, like, follow, all that kind of stuff. Hashtagging's huge at the moment because it takes you directly back to whatever it is that you're into or you're making. And also, if you're selling on Etsy or any of the online stores, then using keywords. So if it's a ruby in your ring, write red, write ruby, write silver. Really itemize everything and do it under keyword searches. So when people Google specific words, then your picture will come up in the search.
Okay, awesome. So Izzy, can you just tell us a little bit about your career so far with art?
I've always made stuff. Ever since I can remember, I used to sew clothes for my Barbies, and I've always made stuff. I used to have a hat store when I grew up in Auckland. I've been part of cooperatives before. My world has always been around handmade. I did a fine arts degree at Monash in 2000, and I majored in glass blowing, which is my true passion. And then when I realised that in order to sell my work through galleries, and they wanted to take up to 100%, that I couldn't afford to even begin. And we came up with the idea for Incube8r. It was like an indoor marketplace where people rent spaces, and we take no commission at all on the sales. So 100% of what artists sell through us, goes back into their pocket.
What's a co-op?
It's where 3 or 4 people own a shop together. And we used to take turns upstairs and downstairs running the shop and making stuff upstairs. But then you've also got lots of different personalities in together.
Yeah.
It can sometimes get a bit wobbly too.
So what was the first piece of artwork that you sold, and how excited were you? Can you remember?
I joined a friend who had an existing hat stall, and she taught me how to make hats in Auckland. And I remember the first person coming up and trying on one of the very first hats I made, and really liking it and buying it, and it was such a buzz. And that I see that in here every day as well, is when people first bring their stuff in, and we've got software where all the artists can log in and see all their sales, and I always get an email on the first sale going, I can't believe somebody really liked that so much. And it's very exciting to see people sell handmade stuff, because so much love goes into handmade items.
Yeah. Do you have any words of encouragement and advice for artists? I know it could be quite tough to start out and then go, okay, no, I'm not going to become a doctor. I'm actually going to stick with this being an artist. So what words of encouragement do you have?
Don't give up. Try. I tried 101 different things until I came up with the Incube8r idea. I just knew that I wanted to be my own boss and be in business for myself, by myself. So just try and try and try until you find that right colour, that right thing. Don't give up. Keep visual diaries, always draw your ideas down, make notes, keep a journal as you're going along, and just try and always increase and keep ideas rolling.
And just out of interest, how many different artistic skills, what did you first start with? Like, what was the first skill that you learnt with art, and then how many others have you tried and incorporated into your work?
I've done everything from ceramics, jewellery, LED lighting, screen printing, bookbinding, photography, sewing, candle making, glass blowing. I constantly make stuff, decoupage, collage, sculpture, wood. On my blog you can see what I do, and there's
What's your blog?
lots on Incube8r
on
our website.
Yeah. And what are the challenges that artists are facing nowadays?
It's a tricky time where there's a lot of competition in terms of what handmade means, and it's become tricky in here as well. Like, personally, I don't believe it's handmade if it's been laser cut, because somebody drew a picture and then a machine made it, so there's a grey area in there. We also don't accept any component assembly, because to us that's still just sweatshop. Some beads came from somewhere and they got put together, and it's not really handmade. So the more unique something is and the more bright and personality it has, the easier we find it to sell. So things that are kind of come in large runs and there's, lots of them, and they're not as personalised, they can sit there for a bit longer, other than, you know, the items that are, there's just one of them and they're really, really personal and really unique. So.
Of course, a lot of things are being made overseas, and it's harder for a designer to actually build a business in Australia. Like, do you have any advice for people who say, you know what, I really want to turn my artwork into a business where I'm creating and designing something, but then make it profitable? Do you think it's still viable to do that in Australia?
It depends on personal choice. We are about Australian handmade. We don't use the word designer because often that can mean offshore production, but that's just what this shop is about.
Yeah.
If someone wants to go bigger, then probably offshore production would be cheaper to get multiples and bigger runs. But I've seen lots of people make a full-time living in here from handmade stuff.
Okay.
And also recycling and upcycling different things, going around op shops collecting things and then reconstructing them. That can be a really cost-effective way of doing it.
And it's fun.
Yeah.
So much fun.
Yeah.
Where other places can you source materials and products from, like from Australia to again use Australian made that we might not know of, like younger kids?
There's a lot of craft websites. There's one called Craft8r, which also sells craft supplies. Etsy sells a lot of craft supplies, and also vintage and upcycled, and probably Etsy's the main one to go to in terms of if you want to get supplies. eBay's really good. I'm currently making candles, so I'm sourcing a lot of things from eBay, and a lot of old vintage jars and used containers from op shops and secondhand sales and things like that. Just start around, rummage. Garage sales are good.
Right, and that must be half the fun of making art. So, okay, that's a good question actually. Why do you make art?
There's something that happens when you sit down and make something where your left brain splits away from your right brain and you fall into a zone where it's almost like meditation. All the chatter, all the negative stuff, whatever it is that you've got running in your head, just drops away and you just go into this really, really peaceful space. And I've got a really, really busy brain, so I really like for it to shut up, and I just sit down and I make something and I go into the zone, and that's why I make stuff.
Awesome. Great. Well, thank you so much for the interview, Isy. And yeah, okay, see you guys. Bye.
Thanks.